Engine 1 from Car 1. Car 1's on scene. Assuming command. Give me a C.A.N report.
What's up, everybody? This is Mike Goldstein, Stickers of the C.A.N Report, coming at you with a great guest I have today, my good friend, Robert Ramierz. Nozzle Tov, my friend, Rob.
Thank you, brother. Great to be here. Super excited about this one. It's always a pleasure to be on podcast, but it makes it real special when you're with somebody you care about.
Yeah, dude. Same feeling. Absolutely. I am so pumped to have you on the show. Rob and I met a couple of years ago now at the Dadgum Fire Conference and we became quick, good friends. My heart is just pumping right now to have you on the show with me because I'm just busting with pride and I'm just so excited to have you on. Robert Ramierz is down in Miami-Dade. A lot of people know him. But if the people who don't know him, especially in my neck of the woods, this is the man, the Mayday Mindset guy. This is if you can't truck, you can't writ. The guys that I usually preach about when I'm doing my training, this is the guy. So anybody in New Hampshire who's not familiar with him, make sure you are listening to this. Make sure you are subscribing. You're liking this. Make sure you save it because there's a lot of good information that's going to be coming out tonight in this episode. You're going to want to make sure you pay attention. Robert Ramierz, my man, welcome to the C.A.N Report.
Thanks for having me, brother. I'm super excited. Let's get it on. Come on.
Let's get it on, dude. All right. So I'm going to jump into your bio. Robert Ramierz. Oh, dude, I can't believe I'm just saying that name on my podcast. Robert Ramierz is a 24-year fire service veteran with degrees in fire science and public administration. Since 2005, Rob has been a technical rescue team manager for the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, USAR task force in Miami, Florida, where he has served on dozens of high-profile national and international disaster deployments. In addition, Rob has been a student of psychology, physiology, and the effects of stress on human performance for over a decade. His education and personal experiences have provided him with a variety of unique instructional strategies and methods that apply to firefighters of any rank or tenure. Rob is also an international fire service speaker, instructor, and published author. Throughout his fire service career, he has held the ranks of firefighter, paramedic, lieutenant, department training officer, and captain. Well, Rob is a very proud father of two amazing boys and is currently the division chief of training, safety, and wellness for the Jupiter Fire Rescue Department. All right. Did I leave anything out?
That's way too much, dude. Thank you.
That's way too Rob, all right, man. So, dude, let's just start with it. Mayday Mindset. That is you. That is your company. How did you come up with that?
So the Mayday Mindset was completely, I've said this 100 times, it's 100% organic. Similar to your travel and your journey and what you've been experiencing the last couple of years. It wasn't in the plans. It wasn't something that I brought to fruition through prayer and intent. It was something that happened organically. I've always had a passion for teaching. And then teaching came from, I don't know what, dude, because no one in my family teaches and I wasn't around instructors coming up as a student. I wasn't trying to be an instructor. I just really enjoyed giving back to guys that I was working with and help them be the best version of themselves. That turned into young guy CPR classes, young guy EMS classes. Down here, I'm a paramedic. Most of us are paramedics in South Florida. And when we say South Florida, we're talking about the Palm Beach County, Broward County, where Fort Lauderdale is, and Miami-Dade County, where Miami and Miami-Dade are. And those three counties that we refer to as the Tri-County area, more than 90% of us are paramedics, even though we're on fire trucks. We run a lot of ALS suppression units, ALS aerial trucks, ALS ladders and engines and quints. And then our rescues are not a heavy rescue, but our ambulances, we refer to them as rescues because they bring a full complement of truck company tools, and they're staffed with 3 firefighter paramedics that at fires also fill in as single fire task units. And they can perform searches, VES, ladders, suppression, stretch a second line. We use them for all types of purposes. So we refer to those guys as rescues. Anyhow, growing up down here, I just started teaching paramedic school. Teaching paramedic school really let me hone in how to communicate with people. And then teaching technical rescue as well. All the stuff that I liked. I was being super selfish. I loved what I loved and I did what I did because selfishly it made me happy. It filled my cup. And getting other people better was the byproduct of me filling my own cup and learning the information and learning how to teach you information and getting really complicated shit and turning it simple so it made sense to everyone else. And somewhere along the line, I picked up a knack for being able to do that. And guys were giving me feedback. Hey, dude, I took your class. It was great. I took this class. It was great. I still remember the way you taught me this, that, or the other. And I started thinking to myself, holy shit, I might be able to do this, right? This might be a thing. So then I started teaching at the Minimum Standards Academy and teaching the recruits. And I was working with the recruits. And then eventually in 2013, a spot opened up in our training division. And I put in for it. And Lord behold, boom, I got it. I was one of the training guys. And I was on 40 hours, my first stint in 40 hours. And I thought I'd hate it, but I loved it because I was teaching and getting paid at work to teach. And then on my days off, I was still teaching, but not for work, but for other places. And here's what happened. I went on a deployment, right? So I go on this deployment. You mentioned earlier that I'm part of the FEMA Urban Search and Rescue program down here. I'm one of those 28 teams in the country. So South Florida has Task Force 1 and Task Force 2 in the FEMA system. So we stay pretty active, whether it's a state deployment, regional deployment, and we've been used internationally as well for Mexico, Puerto Rico, Haiti, and stuff like that, right? Up in your neck of the woods, the FDNY does a similar thing. Jersey has a similar team. And then the big team is Fairfax County and LA County. They're part of USAID, like USAID, and they travel the entire world. They're a global team. They go to Europe, they go to Russia, they go to Asia. They went to Japan for the tsunami like 15 years ago. Those guys get around. They're a full-time urban search and rescue program run by the LA Fire Department and the Fairfax County Fire Department. Those guys are dialed. I've worked with them a bunch. So I'm on my deployment to Haiti. And those guys that don't know, in 2010, Haiti had a big 7.5 or something earthquake. The infrastructure wasn't there before the earthquake. So afterwards, happened in the middle of the day, like 4 p.m. on a weekday. People were out. Every building collapsed. I wish I had the numbers, but it was a significant loss. I do remember that there was initially 250,000 fatalities. So, and they can Google that because it sounds like a crazy number. Anybody that wants to Google that later, you can. 250,000 people. In 9/11, we lost over 6,000. This is 250,000 in an island the size of smaller than Hawaii. And it went down, and it went down bad. We ended up in Haiti. Happened on a Tuesday. We were there on Wednesday morning. Happened real fast. And we got hit with over 40 aftershocks during our deployment. I'm from Florida. We are used to hurricanes, right? We don't get many tornadoes like the Midwest does. If we got tornadoes, we lose half the population on Florida because we get like 2 weeks notice for a hurricane and we still fuck that up and lose people, right? Can I say fuck on your podcast? I'm sorry.
You can totally say fuck. Fuck is a good word.
I appreciate you. It's one of those firefighter exclamation points, right? I'll use it sparingly. And while on deployment there, being from Florida, never experienced an earthquake. What they call an aftershock to me is the world moving and my body doesn't understand what's happening. And it was very, very scary. It actually, if anybody's experienced an earthquake for the first time, it messes with your inner ear. And I got motion sickness right away because your brain cannot understand that the planet is moving in a way it's not supposed to move daily.
Wow. I never knew that, actually.
It's crazy. It's like, and it's not a shake, it's a wave. And the earth is a wave, and you can see it coming at you from a distance if you're not on the epicenter. So we got hit with like 40 of those in a 2-week period. And one time we got hit with it, I was pretty deep in a hole. And when I say a hole, we were working in a multi-story collapsed commercial structure. We had confirmations that there was people still alive and trapped in there. They had been texting their families until their phone batteries died. Gave pretty good descriptions of where they were in this building. It was a pancake style collapse. So 5 stories had compressed down to like 2.5 stories. And the void spaces were very, very small. We were able to dig our way into it and we're working. And I'm probably 10 feet up and about 25 feet in a space that I can probably put my arms out this way about the width of the screen. And if I lifted my head, my helmet would hit right on my belly. And we're down there working with these braking hammers, these Hilti hammers, Hilti brand hammers. And they're basically jackhammers. And we're working on it to get from one hole that we're in to where we think the victim is on the other side. As we're working on that, there's 2 of us working in that space. And I feel everything moving. I feel rubble hitting my head. And I look in front of me, and I think that it's my partner, Timmy Gleason, which you've met, right? Yeah. Timmy's one of our cadre guys, rock star. So Timmy Gleason is with me. And I'm thinking that it's his tool that's vibrating the debris and causing it to hit my helmet. And then I quickly realized that it's happening more and more and more. And the earth started moving, and the hall that we were in, not the hall, the hole that we were in started moving like a snake, all the concrete. And we're in it, and we couldn't turn around to get out. So we had to asshole and elbows backwards because there wasn't enough space to turn around. As he starts crawling to me, his boots are kicking my face because he's moving and I'm moving. And I remember for a second when it all happened, I had done survival classes. I had done firefighter classes. This is 2010, so I had been on the job since 2001. So I've been on for like 9 years, right? I was a lieutenant at the time in the fire department, a busy company. I was teaching, and I thought that I was ready for whatever the world threw at me. Like, I'm an urban search and rescue guy. I teach at the academy. I teach RIT. I was not ready for the biological response my body went through. And everything that I thought I would have readily available, and the calmness and ability to perform that I was expecting, that intentional reaction was not there. And I became completely reactive, out of control, and I ran like a victim. And that stayed with me privately for a while, right? And that turned into not being able to teach confined space, not being able to do search stuff. I started feeling uncomfortable in tight spaces, which I had never been my entire career.
So when you were doing that, when that was happening, when you're in that hole, that was the moment you were like, when you got out, were you still panicked, or were you just like incredibly panicked in that hole with Timmy inside? Like, did you, like, when you came out, you're like, holy shit, I'm so glad that's done, and you were able to calm yourself down?
Correct.
Or was that like just panic mode once you got out, and then you're standing around still like just couldn't believe what just happened to you?
Awesome.
Guys?
Funny story, right? I was completely panicked in the hole. Initially, it becomes anybody who's experienced like a near miss or a mayday or near death experience, right? They're on point. Everything slowed down. And I have a vivid, if I can close my eyes right now, I have a vivid visual image of the hammer firing when he let it go and started crawling, firing and falling. Right? That's how like hyper focused I was. And this can't be happening. We're going to be okay. We may not be okay. Started to panic. Right? When his first boot hit my face, because I wasn't moving, is when I started moving. And he said he had some choice words for me to get out of his way.
Get the fuck out of my way. I want out of here.
Exactly. Once we got outside, firemen being firemen, holy shit, that was crazy, dude. High fives across the board. Sick. Awesome. Amazing. That was nuts. We almost fucking died, right? Privately, the bosses weren't happy. We weren't bosses back then, right? What happened afterwards, there wasn't really much said. It became a volunteer-only mission. And I've actually never said this on a podcast, but I feel like the statute of limitations is over now. And it's been over 10 years. And it became a volunteer-only mission. We got 80 of us. We're brought over by the highest levels of government in the area we were in. And we were told, we know there's people there. You guys all have families at home. We cannot ask you to go back into those buildings. We cannot predict another aftershock. And we cannot predict what will happen to that building in the event of another aftershock. But we've been working on this pile for a couple of days now. We were the only team on site because there was hundreds of rescuers in the island, but we were spread out. Like I told you, 250,000 casualties. And we were spread out over miles and miles and miles. And
that's what I was going to ask you is if you were actually had confirmed victims, if you knew, because I can't imagine. Okay, that's what I was going to ask. It's like, it's like
she was muffled through the rug, and I can hear her like this.
Okay,
like she had an SCBA mask on.
Yeah,
and I couldn't understand her because she only spoke Creole, right? But we had translators with us.
Yeah,
and then we would bring a translator in who was a firefighter, and we took them with us just because they spoke Creole, not because they were part of the team. And they would get in the hole as far as they were comfortable and communicate with them and let us know what they were saying. Long story short, we went out, volunteer only mission. After that, I sat next to Timmy Gleason and two other guys that worked for my old fire department, and we didn't say a word to each other. And all that Timmy asked me was if I had eye protection and enough water to go back in. And I
Wow.
said, that's all I got. I said, yeah, I got iPro and I got plenty of water, brother. He never asked me if I was going back in.
It's when you're going back in.
It just legit. I sat down next to him and he said, you good with the iPro? You need more water or anything before? I was like, no, I'm good. Thanks.
Wow.
The end. And that messed with me afterwards, because I did have a kid at the time, right? I did have a family. I thought about all those things. And then I felt a sense of responsibility to the people that were on the other side of that wall that we were getting to. We eventually got to them that night, later on that night. I'd be lying to you, Goldie, if I told you what time this was, but it was in the afternoon when we got hit by the aftershock, daylight hours. And somewhere in the early morning, like 3 or 4 in the morning, we actually ended up pulling her out. With nonstop, no work rest, just working through it and rotating. You and I would go in, we'd break for freaking 20 minutes. They pull you and I out, bring in 2 more fresh bodies, break for 20 minutes. And we just kept doing that. 80 dudes, 80.
Shit.
And we got her
That's
out like at
crazy.
3 in the morning. I'll show you
She was
pictures
still
of me later.
viable,
Pretty
or
cool pictures. Pretty cool pictures. But it messed with me, like I told you. And how does that all relate back to the Mayday mindset? I got back home. I started experiencing these issues. I never told anyone. Wasn't open about it. Very proud, young guy, emotionally immature. The resources weren't there. The fire service wasn't what it is now, where I can reach out to a guy in New Hampshire and have him hear me out. We were very local and regional. It was a local sport. And I just kind of dealt with it on my own. One day I met a gentleman by the name of Rick George. Anybody involved in the world of conferences and higher level education knows who Rick George is. He's been around forever. He wrote a book on tactical resiliency. He retired from Palm Beach County Fire Rescue. He was a chauffeur there. He's a fireman's fireman, and he had experienced something similar, put a class together, and I sat through his class on a whim. And he described everything I went through and explained it in a way that made sense to me. He connected all my dots for me, and I just needed somebody to do that. And I thought it was the most amazing thing in the world. I took a program that he put on. I went out and he just taught his class at MAFC last week, and tactical resiliency. And then that's where he lives now. He's retired in Georgia. And that really, really, really turned me on to biological changes. And that made me dive deep. And during my bachelor's degree education, I dove deep into that stuff. And then privately, recreationally, I dove deeper. And that's where the whole stress response, human behavior under stress, human education methodologies, adult education methodologies, military approach to freaking tactical resiliency, all those things just started like making sense. And then that led right into like Maydays. Why do guys react the way they do in Maydays? Why is the stuff that we're teaching not applicable to the real world? Why is the techniques that we've been taught for years since the 80s not available to us? Why are they not available to us during a Mayday? Why do policies and procedures not make sense? Why did the equipment we carried not make sense? And so around 2014, I presented it for the first time. I built the courage to teach it locally. Someone saw it. Next thing I know, I was teaching in Orlando. After that, I was teaching in Georgia. And you know how it is, brother. You teach at one place, you strike the right chord with the right person in the audience. It strikes a chord with them, and then you get another invite. And then social media made it even bigger. And here we are, almost 10 years later. And we've been across the world, Hawaii, Europe, and all over the States.
You usually become a prophet in somebody else's town or state, right? Usually it's right. It's not to say that your own community doesn't believe in you, but usually your word really resonates with people outside your own community, and it really carries that message really far and wide. And then people just start, like you said, they start talking about it. Yeah. And I always wondered how you got into all that. Like, I've heard your story so many times. I love it, but I never really, like you said, connected all the dots of, I never heard exactly all of that story of that's why you're so into the physiology and psychology of Mayday, of RIT, and what our body is doing when we're in those environments. And you're so educated and so well versed in it. And I was always, when I first saw you speak, I was in awe of all this knowledge and information that you had. And I couldn't believe how somebody could obtain all of that. But now it makes sense because you had that personal experience, and then you had that passion to just want to be able to dive into it and teach it and be able to be better for yourself and everybody else. And like I said, I never really connected that dot till right now. Then that's why you have such a wealth of information of what the human body does to itself when it's in those stress levels.
It's I dove deep for many years, right? And then like, you're teaching now, and I learned something, right? When I first started teaching this class 10 years ago, I was a Sandman. I would have put you to bed, because I was diving deep. I remember I told you I'm a paramedic, and I was diving deep during presentations. Imagine like sitting through a 2-hour presentation after lunch at a conference on day 3.
I've been there.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Been
And
there.
you got some dude up there talking to you about limbic friction and the way the nerves connect and how your body reacts. And
That's why you pack a lip and drink a energy drink,
yeah,
and
I was
hopefully,
that guy. I was there. I was breaking it down like to the neurologic level, and I realized that wasn't working, and I had to default back to what made me successful back in the early days teaching paramedicine. I got to take this really, really, really robust subject matter and turn it firefighter friendly, so that they understand why the stuff we're doing doesn't make sense, in a
Yeah.
language that keeps them engaged.
Dude, I mean, like, so in the book, Book of Search, you dive into that. And so that's what's so great of actually hearing that now is it ties into your article that you wrote for Book of Search. That was, if anyone hasn't read it yet or haven't gotten it, please do. The Book of Search. I have it right here. Firehouse Vigilance, Corley Moore, brainchild, and then just it's packed full of information of wonderful people that do great things for the fire service. But your article really breaks it down, and you talk so passionately about it in this article, and you talk about the psychology of it, you talk about the physiology of it, and you've got algorithms, and you could tell just by the writing of how passionate you are and how much you want people to understand, like we need to be better to understand the human body, the mindset that we have of what's going to happen when we get these stressors introduced to us if we're not actually training for it. And like you said, like I can only imagine like you diving into it first and only not knowing how to present it. Like you said, coming out of that paramedic style of, because you start talking paramedicine, like I work with a bunch of amazing paramedics, but when they start talking about certain things, I'm suppression, and I love RIT and I love all that stuff. When you start talking about paramedicine, it's like you're speaking a different language. I start going off in a different area. So
I had to learn to teach it, right? I've always said this, right? In order to be a successful instructor in anything we do, we have to have a nice balance of credibility and relatability, right? In order to grow your audiences. This is what I had done. This is who I am. This is why I'm here today. And I am like you, right? Relatable.
Yeah.
Think about the scales of justice, right? You know, the lady with the scales of justice. Too much credibility, not enough relatability. You can be the smartest dude in the world, and your audience is gonna be very, very small. You're only gonna hit the super smart dudes that speak your freaking science language.
Yeah.
Or too much relatability, like this guy's fucking awesome. I want to go drink with him. He's got cool tattoos and an awesome mustache, right? But he doesn't know shit. Like, why am I sitting in this class? I'd rather have somebody who's 50-50, bro.
Yeah.
And I had to find that balance to make it work. And once I found it, it really, really took off. And it wasn't like a personal, like, I want this to take off so I can be cool reason. It was because, and I've said this, Timmy says this all the time, Gleason, if one thing that we say one day helps one person go back home to their family, everything we took away from our fire department, our family, our kids, our significant others, everything we've done, every flight we've taken is worth it. Because we don't do this for the money, bro.
Absolutely.
Nobody does this for the income. Yep. Everybody does this for the friggin' outcome.
I love it. I nailed it. So you have the knowledge of the psychology part of it and the physiology. Now you also have great knowledge of the practical application, what you present in your hands-on classes. Where did you come up with those styles? Where did you come up with this out-of-box thinking? Because when I met you at the Daggum Fire Conference, I was really impressed by the way you were able to relate to us. Like you just said, relatability, and you don't want to bore us, and credibility. And I could tell right away that this is a guy who knows his shit. is a guy who not only is incredibly smart, but the hands-on part of it. Because again, I'm a firefighter, and if I'm watching an instructor who is fiddle fucking around and can't figure out how to get through a wire prop or get through studs, or can't do any simple RIT application, I'm going to be turned off by it. Mm-hmm. But you weren't like that, and your cadre of instructors for Mayday Mindset were the same. We were all dialed in, but you had these practical applications that were, for me, were very out of the box, and I really enjoyed what you had to present with that. Where did you come up with some of your practical applications to make things a little bit easier for us? The non-traditional methods of, like, say, the wire prop.
Right. So I guess this probably applies to every subject matter. Think about like hose lines and stuff. The way that you were taught to stretch hose lines initially changed when you got to your first firehouse, right? Then you were taught a different way. And then when you left that firehouse and went to the next one, it changed. When you went to the next organization, it changed. Then when you started going to conferences, it changed again. Same thing happened with me. I started diving deep into the psychology, physiology, biology components, right? And when you start learning those things and you start reading the data and you start seeing what the historical evidence is for all these Mayday after Mayday after Mayday, you start looking at the world different. Like, you all of a sudden, the skill that you thought was bulletproof now has a bunch of freaking holes in it, right? I'm not going to be able to do that because of this. That won't be available because of that. So then I came up with a rule. And this is the rule that we haven't changed. A lot of shit's changed over the last 10 years, right? A lot of shit, like constantly. I've had people take my class, and I say my class, take our class, fucking 3-4 times. And I'm like, dude, why are you here again? And I always get the same answer. Every time I take it, I pick something up different. You say something different. You change this, you change that, right? These are the guys that are ate up because they're like Rick guys and truck guys. And I get it. It's not for everybody. But the reason it's changing is because we are still learning. So I'm a student first, right? And as the science and the data changes, the skills have to change. The application, the hands-on portion has to change. So I came up with the following rules, and then we kept them as simple as possible. In order for us to teach a skill, in order for us to push a piece of equipment, in order for us to preach anything, we all have to have experienced some level of it, right? So it's not just theoretical, it's practitioner level. And the most important rules are that it needs to pass what we refer to as the Mayday Mindset failure variables. The Mayday Mindset failure variables for any skill, activity, tactic, strategy, or piece of equipment that we carry on ourselves or into a survival or firefighter rescue emergency has to pass our biology capabilities, right? Our technology capabilities, so it's our environment. I just got to go in order because I'm all over the place. If I go in order, I can see the slide in my head. It needs to pass our environment, our biology, our technology, and our people. Environment, technology, biology, people. So what am I talking about? These are the same things we see every time. Let's start first with our environment. The building and the fire always get a vote. Your position in any space is dictated by the conditions in that space, right? We don't stand high if it's hot. We don't move fast if there's no visibility. Right? So don't teach me shit that requires me to stand up above 3 feet because I know it's not going to happen. And don't teach me shit that requires me to move fast if I can't see, right? The next thing we look at is our technology, whether it's communications, bunker gear, or ticks, right? Or even gloves. Yeah. Our gloves that we wear, the equipment that we carry, the radio communications that we attempt, right? All, and our PPE, all needs to match the skill that you're teaching me, because I can tell you to a T and what's going to fail, because we haven't been hit by a UFO during a Mayday. It's always the same shit. It's medical, it's environmental, it's structural. The same thing happening over and over. Unexpected fire behavior. It happens over and over and over. Being out of position, operating in an offensive posture during a defensive operation. These things get us jammed up historically for 100 years. We have the data for it, right? So it needs to pass that. And once it passes our environment and our technology. Now we need to go to our biology. What am I going to be able to do in that environment? Once I go into full fight or flight, what are my reactions going to do? Will I have dexterity? Will I have auditory exclusion? Will I be able to think complex algorithms? Will I be able to communicate with the people around me? Will I be able to move effectively? When my pupils dilate, what happens? All these things make sense. And if the skill I'm teaching you requires you to have non-dilated pupils, the ability to listen, the ability to feel or smell or hear, I'm not going to teach it to you because it's not available. Right. If what I'm teaching you requires you to go through some complex algorithm and tie a double figure 8 Raker shore on a bike, which doesn't exist, I'm not going to teach it to you, bro. If the piece of equipment has a gate or some type of threaded tool, I'm not going to teach it to you, bro. And last but not least, it needs to pass our people. Our people are our next failure variable. Are they stepping on your transmissions where they're unnecessary transmissions? Are they out of position where they're not exactly where they're supposed to be? Are they undertrained? Are they underprepared? Are they fat and disgusting? Able to rescue you, right? Are they undersized and not strong enough? All these things matter. So if I can't pass the people, the biology, the technology, and the environment, the 4 Mayday Mindset variables based on history and data, I'm not going to teach it to you. And that's why all our shit challenges the norms, changes the status quo, and promotes growth.
Dude, that's amazing. You absolutely nail it. And you're absolutely right. And I mean, we talk about, I'll just talk about that one part right that you just said, like the physical part of it. We talk about a lot in the fire service right now. That's like kind of like a big hot topic, right? Is the physical aspect of it. Like, are we being physical fit? Are we too weak? Are we not strong enough? Are you, do you need extra large, tented gear? Are you wearing a muumuu? All these things that we talk a lot about, but you just said, like, for training, like what are we teaching to? Who's the person that we're applying that to? And that's, honestly, as an instructor part of it, that's the difficult part as well, is if I have somebody who is incredibly obese and out of shape and out of education, how am I supposed to teach them these most basic of basic skills? If they can't get their gear on in a timely fashion, how am I expecting to perform inside this structure that I'm going to smoke up, that I'm like noise inoculation, like I'm going to be making this stressful for you? Because I was literally just talking, because I was so excited about talking to you. I was telling my wife about what you teach and the fact of we have to prepare our students for those worst days of their lives. And if we just start them cold, because we're athletes as well, like our body needs to be acclimated to this. We have to be moving. We have to be physically fit. We have to be ready to rock. And if we just stand them at the door and just say, okay, go do it. Well, that's easy enough to do, because they're not stressed. And those big people don't want to be stressed. Right. And then the smaller people are usually gonna be that, well, I can't, they're already gonna have that mindset. I can't do it. We're going to start them cold on a hard subject where they got to move a heavy subject. An immediate response is going to be, can't do it. I'm not strong enough. Look how big I am. I'm 4'5" and I weigh 98 pounds. Can't do it. But like you said, like, I'm going to teach you those skills beforehand, and I'm slowly going to introduce those to you. 100%. And I love it.
A lot of our guys are ready, willing, and able, right? They're like, oh, dude, I got this. But the reality is that competency, it doesn't plateau. Competency does not remain neutral. It doesn't, right? Listen, I've been on the job 24 years. I'm 46 years old. I worked in busy companies. I worked in slow companies. I rode the ambulance. I rode a quint. I ran all night. I've been in urban environments. I've never been rural, right? I'm not my own best rescuer. I'm not. Like, I'm emotionally mature enough and comfortable in my skin to know that there's nothing in the world that I love more than my 2 sons. And if I have to go home in the morning to my 2 sons after a fire, and I got to choose Robert Ramierz or insert other super athlete here, I would pick super athlete to come get me and get me home to my 2 boys, the things I love most in my life, right? Mm-hmm. But I still try my ass off, because I understand that, and this is what's so important, and shame on the guys and girls that have been on for a long time. You don't have to be on for 24 or 34. if you've been on for 10, 15, 14, 12, and you think that because you've been to a couple of fires, because you've thrown a ladder a couple of times, because you've set, a hose line here and there, you got after it at a good fire, that shit does not remain with you. It doesn't. No one's competency plateaus or remains neutral. You're either in two states. You're either getting better or you're getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
Period. There is no in between, right? How do you stop freaking Michael Jordan back in the day from being Michael Jordan? The only way you stop that man, aside from breaking his legs or locking him in his freaking hotel room, don't let him practice.
Right.
Period.
Yeah, like, do you think Michael Jordan, I won this basketball game, then he could just sit back and just not practice anymore? Like, I kicked ass that last game. I don't have to do this again. I've already done it. One game, right? You have to continuously. I fought this fire. I did really well. Well, for me, I'm always doing my playbacks. I'm always looking at my games and going, okay, I could have thrown that ladder better, or that stretch sucked, or or just physically, like, what the hell was wrong with me that day? I was sucking wind, and I'm normally not like that. Maybe I need to up my training in my gear or otherwise. But you're absolutely right. The Michael Jordans, the LeBron James, like, they didn't stop training just because they won 3 games in a row. They were like, how can I get better? I want to get better and better and better. I don't want them to score on me. That sucks. They got 3 points on me. I don't want them to have 3 points. I want to have 0. So we got to be the same way. I want to be the best. And it's not a selfish thing either. I think some people might think, like, I want to be the best on the fireground. I do, because I want to perform and I want to go home to my kids, but I want to pull victims out of houses. I want to be able to put fires out, and I don't want to have to come out of that building sucking wind or potentially become a statistic of heart disease or cardiac arrest because I wasn't physically fit for the job. So yeah, we are athletes, and it's not volunteer, and it's not career. It's not that split. You can be a volunteer and still be physically fit. You can still be very into the job, but you got to be completely into it, just like those athletes are. Baseball, football, golf. They're never happy until they retire, right?
That's
until they retire, and then they can sit back.
That's
right?
why they're the best.
Right, exactly.
And I want the best coming after my kids.
Yeah.
I want to ride a truck with the best. It's okay. Don't be ashamed to say that you don't want to be the best. You should want to be the best. The most successful, legendary firefighters anywhere in this country wanted to be the best. So
yes, sir.
Sold out to their craft. They just didn't say I'm the best. They put in the work before the work was there. 99% of what happens at a fire is dictated by 100% what you do before that fire. Yeah. A dysfunctional fireground is a dysfunctional freaking training division or firehouse.
Absolutely.
Period.
And those guys, like, basketball players, when they're training, right, they're doing about half the time they're doing by themselves.
Yes.
Until somebody else maybe goes, hey, I want to train with you. And you develop that culture. And it just keeps going that way and going that way. And then eventually it's going to become contagious, and they're going to want to follow suit because, man, like, holy shit, Mike he was running circles around us on that fireground. He threw ladders. He did this. He did that. Like, holy shit.
It's okay. I want you coming after my kids.
I want you to come after kids, but I want them to be inspired to do the same thing. I want whether it's the couch surfers or the new recruits to come and go, holy crap, I need up my game. I got to play on that same field with Mike. I got to be up to his level because he's going to show me up on that game. He's going to show me up on that fireground, and I don't want to be showed up. I got to be able to work and keep up with him. And I think that also comes with the fact of also this environment and some of the new cultures. We don't need to shame people into doing it. Like, I think if we're continuously doing what we want to do and be the better on the drill yard or the fireground, other people are going to want to do it. I don't need to call anybody out and say, you physically suck, or you can't throw a ladder. You can't be on my company. I can continuously throw my ladders when I have downtime. And like I said, if they see me doing it and go, oh, hey, how do you do that? Let's do it together. And then each shift, we'll do it together. Or, hey, because like for me, I love stretching hoses. We were talking about that earlier. And I'll love doing just a dry stretch in the bay. If I got downtime, I'm going to do a lot of that. But then I see new guys, hey, I'll show you this way to do it. And then they don't even know what's going to happen when it comes to that day and they got to stretch that line. it's going to be like they were scratching their ass. It's just something so familiar because we did it shift after shift of just having fun with it. I didn't have to shame them into it. I've never once said to anybody, well, if you don't do this with me, you're going to suck. Right. That's a horrible way to do it. Or, that the shaming it doesn't work. That's where you start getting that performance anxiety, because then you're just going to be shamed into something. And if I'm staring at you going, well, Mike's looking at me now because I didn't train with him, so he's going to make me feel like shit. No, I'm going to make you do it with me, but by infecting you to do it. I want it to be contagious. I want it to be organic.
Competency is the most important thing we can do in the fire service. And you touched on drills, right? And what you're referring to is what I refer to, as a growth mindset. You Google growth mindset. You're describing it to a T. You have to create an environment, whether you're a leader, on like a formal organizational leader with rank, or a non-promoted leading from the bottom up leader. You need to create an environment where it is safe to have that growth mindset. Drills are an opportunity to fail. The goal in training is not to win. The goal on the fire ground is to win. I want to go undefeated on the fire ground, and it's fucking impossible. That's a tough sport to go undefeated in, right?
Yes,
there
sir.
isn't a fire to this day, even the good ones, that I don't want another freaking whack at, to do something different, right?
What did you say? It's practice doesn't make perfect.
It makes permanent.
Practice makes permanent.
And that's because the brain cannot unwire itself.
Yes, sir.
You do something over and over, like people like #reps, bro. Remember when that was a thing, right? It's kind of died down a little bit, but it was all about reps for a good freaking 5 years. Reps matter. No, yeah, they matter if you're doing it fucking right. If you're not doing it right, you're just training your brain really, really, really well to do some shit wrong. And you're creating a reaction that's not going to meet the environment. And the goal is to always create a tempo that's higher than your opponent's. And our opponent is fire, and the environment, and the people, and our biology, and our anxiety, and the stress. So make sure that what you're repping out on makes sense, because practice creates permanent. It does not create perfect. Furthermore, we do not default to our highest level of training. All right? You default to what has become routine. Under stress, mayday, 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 you default right after you say that to what has become routine, not the super high speed class you took or all the initials behind your name because you're promoted or you got a degree. You default to what has become routine, and only that. The brain cannot work any different. Not because you're fucking dumb. I don't give a shit if you're SEAL Team 6 and you're going after Bin Laden. It's because you're human. Before you put that uniform on in the morning, you're human. And hundreds of thousands of years of evolution have given us a brain that under stress defaults to what has become routine, not to the coolest and last thing you read, saw, or on YouTube, or tried at the firehouse once.
Yeah.
Period.
I love it, dude. Man, I freaking love you, Rob.
Love you more.
We were talking about, like, just doing one thing at a time, or just not really getting a lot of reps into it, or the new things. One of the new things I've been hearing a lot about, and I'd love to get your explanation on about it, because it's actually a good theory, is the OODA loop. And I've heard Kyle Ramierz talk about it, and he explains it very well. But I'd love to get your explanation on it, like how you apply it into this type of your training. How can you explain to the people who are listening?
So it's a decision-making process that your body defaults to before it creates an action, right? So what the hell was that?
I thought it was a wild animal for a second.
Me too. I looked out the window. I'm up in the second floor too. Anyhow, action, reaction, right? Action, reaction. The goal is to have your reaction match the action, right? Equal forces or higher than, so that you can survive long enough to either fix the problem or right off the rip, if you're super high level, fix the problem. The OODA loop is the way that the human body and the brain react to an action. So what determines your OODA loop, or the effectiveness of your OODA loop, is your training. And the training needs to be purposeful and intentful and realistic. If your training environment does not match your real world environment, your OODA loop's going to be fake and useless, right? Now, when it comes to OODA loop, observing and orienting and deciding, right? That whole process is just an acronym, right? That whole process is part of learning and part of teaching. And we've all been part of drills or heard of those horror stories where they'll put a guy in some type of confined space maze or confidence maze is what they call it nowadays, SCBA confidence drill or whatnot, and they shut their bottle off or they turn their shit inside out or have they remove the bottle or unscrew or unpop their stem or knock them over or disorient them or rip something off their air pack or shut a door that was there before and is no longer there. All that you're doing in that process is interrupting their OODA loop, right? Their natural decision-making process based on their experience and training. What happens is that it can be awesome for high-speed performers and it can be beneficial and you can get a positive outcome out of that. But if you do that prematurely to somebody who's not prepared for OODA loop interruption, you can create horrible, horrible permanent training wounds or scars, right? Where they're going to just survive the training, not literally, like they're not going to die, but their brain is going to perceive it, and perception is reality, as I just survived that horrible experience. And guess what? The brain under stress is a horrible multitasker. It can only do one thing.
Yeah.
So if it chooses to survive, it cannot learn. Therefore, the training was in vain. Your brain only has two states when you stress it out: survival or learning. So if you fuck somebody up in training because you twist them 10 ways from Tuesday to make it super duper hard and complicated when they're not ready for that level of complication and intensity, all they did was survive the drill. They got lucky. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut. And you think that kid kicked ass and he just survived it. He learned nothing from it. You know what he learned? This guy's a dick or that girl's a dick, and I never want to do that again. I never want to work at that firehouse again. I never want to go to that conference again.
Dude, that's amazing. I'm just getting flashbacks in my previous department, because that was kind of how that training would go. The training captain at the time, he would just, this is the drill we're doing, and this is the way you have to do it. And then if you sucked at it, he would just tell you how much you sucked. There was really no explanation. Like the biggest drill for me was the Pittsburgh drill. You know, the going over and and man, we all sucked at it really, really bad. And I was still fairly new into the whole thing. But he never explained the why. Why are we doing this drill? Like, why is it even named that way? Right. And then what is the outcome? Like, what are we supposed to get out of it?
What's the expected outcome?
Right. And it was just it was a horrible experience. And I always equated that drill. Every time I heard somebody talking about that drill, it made me want to like throw up in my mouth a little bit, because it sucked so much for me. And all I got out of that whole training event was being ridiculed because we ran out of air and we never accomplished the mission. But we never learned how to be better for that mission, for that training event. Right. And honestly, when I was at Dadgum and they had that drill, they had the Pittsburgh drill there. And I remembered it because it was such a bad event. And I remember telling the other two kids we were with, this is going to suck. Right. I said, I did this a couple of times in my state and I hated every minute of it. I could tell you exactly what's happening. Excuse me. But I turned that negative into a positive. So those training scars is I remembered what I did wrong and how much I was ridiculed for sucking at it. So I knew how to get myself out of that situation. So it really worked to our benefit because I knew what I had to do. But I really, it made me want to be better because I wanted to show that person, like I with the right tutelage and the right people with me, I can be better than what he was trying to make us. And it really worked really, really well.
There is a very specific skill set required when you teach survival and RIT. I'll die on this freaking hill. Not because I'm a RIT and survival instructor, not because of any of that, dude. I don't give a shit if I was a freaking underwater basket weaving instructor. You cannot teach that subject matter the way you teach engine company and truck company operations, because the consequences of a engine company and truck company operations class are the fire doesn't go out, the victim doesn't get found, and period, right? Or you cause a mayday. But most of the time, the large majority of the time, it's somebody not related to you or yourself is not going to get pulled out, or somebody's shit that does not belong to you is going to burn down.
Mm-hmm.
Period. And the majority of organizations will pull you out and go defensive on that operation. If you start screwing up stretches and water supplies and lays and ladder throws or not, or your ladders never come off the truck. So if you can get away with teaching that and coming up with some crazy parking lot hose jiu-jitsu moves, right? But when you start teaching firefighter rescue and self-rescue and survival, you have to be very intentional and aware of the psychological and physiological component. That's the orphan child of that training. If you do not do it the right way by introducing the steps, breaking it down, chunking it into different pieces, introducing metrics or time management late in the process,
Mm-hmm.
and then using that time management and those chunks to create an opportunity to interrupt the OODA loop, you will be unsuccessful as an instructor in that specific lane of firefighter training. And the consequences of being unsuccessful in that lane is that somebody somewhere one day is going to try some fucking fairy dust technique that you taught them in a 30-minute station at a fire conference, and they're not going to go home to their families.
Yeah.
And they're going to hand their wife or their widow a folded flag and their kid their helmet and tell him he died doing what he loved. When in reality, he did love it. He got poor training, poor preparation, unrealistic expectations due to unrealistic training. And when that didn't match the environment, he froze and died. You do not get smarter under stress. You get dumber and stronger. Okay? You don't become MacGyver and suddenly build a fucking bomb out of a paperclip and a condom. You default to what you did last, and you do it over and over and over and over frantically until you either stop breathing or your heart stops, period.
Yeah. Dude, how can you rebuttal that? That's amazing. You're absolutely right. And again, like what I got from you when the picture in the book, you know, and I always tell people the story of you
Goldie's
and
in the book. Goldie
Goldie's
is in the book. I chose that picture with my boy.
And I you man, when you told me about that, I was like, yeah, whatever. And then all of a sudden I saw, I'm like, well, no shit, he wasn't fucking lying. I'm into my book. And well, by the way, I also had a shitload of people text me, hey, what the hell are you doing in that book?
Yeah, because your name's on there. Your coattails on there.
Yeah. And it was great, but I love explaining that special moment that you and I had. It was a teacher student bonding moment. It was very organic. And I tell people like, no, it was a moment where I actually was screwing up. I didn't understand your direction. It was the Denver drill. Mm-hmm. And I was going to do it. I was trying to do it your way and I completely screwed it up. You wanted me to do it my old way. But instead of like coming at me and getting pissed off and like you're not listening to me or anything like that, you were very, very cool about it. You're very calm and you put your arm around me and goes, hey man, I want you to do it the way that you normally do it. Then I'm going to show you my way and show you the maybe an easier way. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but we're going to do this. And that was literally that moment. I'm like, man, this guy gets it. Like he's super chill and super cool about it. It was like, you know, it was a hot day. We're in a gear. It was a long day, but you took that moment to put your arm around me and say, we're going to do this again. And I want you to do it this way. And then we're going to do it another way. And I completely understood the mission. I understood your expectation. And it was a beautiful bonding moment, again, as an instructor and student and two dudes who love the fire service. And you made me love it even more. You made me love what you teach even more. And it's as clear as it happened yesterday, of that special moment of understanding the expectations, but the thinking outside the box, but knowing how to be a better instructor. And that's literally what I got out of that whole week at Dadgum was new skills, but new friends and new way to teach things. And you laying down real world shit and be able to relate to us about it. Like you talk about the physiology of it with us in the drill yard. And it wasn't like mind numbing shit. Like right. You laid it out for firefighters to understand. Perfect example is with the wire prop. Like you showed me a different way to do it. And I honestly had never seen anybody do it on, you talking about do it on your, go on your stomach right. and go that way. And I had never done that before. And then I started thinking to myself of the why. Mm-hmm. Why don't we do this? Why isn't this being taught? and it's simple. It was literally a simple thing. Like, well, that makes totally sense. So I just take my pack off my back and go on my stomach and then move through the prop. But also that you laid it down as well is like, I just want everybody to understand. I don't expect you to put yourself into danger of actually moving into a wire maze when it comes face to face with it. Find a different way. But if the wires start to fall on you, here's a method. But don't ever put yourself crawling into danger and get yourself potentially entangled into wires. There's got to be a better way. Find a different way out. And that really struck with me. I remember, again, it was one of the pivotal moments for me was the way you taught that and made everyone understand there's always another way to do this. And don't put yourself in that danger of it's a wire prop, but like move somewhere else out of that.
Oh, dude, the moment that the picture was captured, and think about it, we had like a legit moment, right? It was completely organic. We were just having two dudes having a conversation. I was being myself. You were being yourself. I don't try to like change people's way of doing things because I want them to do it different. It has to make sense to them. It's not about the how, it's more about the why, right? Mm-hmm. So I was explaining the why to you. I can give a shit. We need to focus as instructors less on the how and more on the why. You can teach anybody how to do something. You can teach a parrot to talk for a freaking treat, right? It has no idea why it's saying what it's saying or vocalizing the noises it's vocalizing, which sound like words to a human. It just knows it gets a freaking treat at the end, right? The difference with us is that we get to explain why we're doing this versus that. And we were having that conversation and it was cool. Entanglement prop. Everybody who's listening to this or will listen to this things now in the world of internet, right? And it'll be around forever. Every single one of us has been through some type of wire entanglement prop, right? Keep it simple. If you are teaching this or you're doing this and your instructor or you're the instructor does not prefix or you don't prefix the drill with the following information. This is an unrealistic drill. This is an unrealistic situation. At no point in your career should you ever encounter a box or wires or a hallway with wires and willingly lay on your side to where your bottle meets the ground and the wall and the ground meet at that 45-degree angle and stick the back of your bottle into that freaking space and swim like Michael Phelps on your back, right? That is absolute fucking bullshit. Don't ever, ever, ever be okay with that. They're simple. I keep it super simple, right? A, B, C. A, identify it. A, cap, wires. A, once you identify it, A, avoid. A, avoid. Done. Hey, we're not going this way. We're going another way. At no point are you like, hey, cap, there's wires. All right, dude, let's go ahead and lay on our sides and bring out your cutters. We're going to swim with this whole line to the fire. No, guess what, guys? It's not your fire. Somebody else is going to get it from the other side of the building. Or the victim search is going to go out. We're going to go around this thing, and we're not going to sit there and swim through it. B, if you're already in it because you weren't able to identify it, so you couldn't A, avoid it, B, now you're in it, back up. And once you back up, if you're able to back up and get out of it, go default to A, avoid it. And guess what? Not your fire, not your victim. If you're in it because you didn't identify it and you are now trying to back up, B, and you're entangled, C, cut, A, B, C. If you cut, make sure you have the right type of cutters in the right location. You have a backup cutter that is a multi-purpose tool that not only cuts wires, that cuts everything, because the majority of our entanglements, guess what, people, does not include freaking wire. All right? It includes everything else you find in a commercial building or a house. So if you carry solely wire cutters, you're geared and prepared to defeat a prop.
And for everybody listening, because you really go off on that too, and I love that you do.
Podcast on just that alone,
dude. Right, on just cutters. I know this, and I love that because I immediately I started understanding what you were talking about. For everybody listening, please dive a little bit deeper. One, because you talk about the action area, which I never really labeled that as before. So I love that. So we talk about the action area, our radio pocket area, our chest area. That's our action area. And you talk about keeping your cutters there. And like you just said, you need different kinds of cutters for different situations. Elaborate on that.
So back to C, right? You're a C cut. And what we're referring to, Goldie and I, is basically that. Your cutters, so you gotta be informed, right? It's the why, not the how. understand why you're doing this. Understand how we ended up crawling through a 6 foot or 8 foot box with wire. It's a necessary evil. We needed to create a prop, not we, because I wasn't around in the 80s. We needed to create a prop that met firefighter entanglement challenges and taught our guys and girls how to defeat it. The most easily replaceable or findable resource, whether it's an acquired or a freaking hardware store, somebody's garage, is cheap wire, whether it's low freaking gauge wire or cable wire, phone wire, you name it. So that's what ends up in every box. And guess what? Most boxes are made up by pieces of plywood that are freaking 4x8. So their boxes are 8 foot long, right? And here you are going through these little boxes, and you think that that's normal. And then God forbid you end up in a situation where you have to actually cut. When you go cut, if you dive deeper into this subject matter and you study case history, you will realize that the majority of the firefighters that were caught in entanglements during a Mayday were not solely caught on wire. They were caught on high tensile steel from HVAC ductwork. They were caught on fabric, couches, hangers, cords, furniture, carpentry, drapes, windows, curtains, all the lady parts of the windows. And guess what? Your wire cutters don't cut all of that shit that I just mentioned. How many electricians do you know in your town that drive around with a Halligan? How many firemen do you know in your town that carry around electrician tools, right? That they freaking bought at some hardware store.
Yep.
Because we were fooled in the 80s and 90s. And till today, guys do it all the time. I travel the whole country into defeating a wire prop, not a fire scene.
Yeah.
Study data, study case history, and you will realize that what I am saying is not Rob, it's data. It's complete and absolute data. It's not irrational. Your feelings are irrational. My facts are not.
I love it. So when you talk about cutters, for the people who have never taken your class and people or even people who are new into this, what style or type of cutter would be beneficial? What should they, I don't want to say brand because we're not sponsored by anybody, but right. What type of cutter would be beneficial for that specific application?
So the most success we've noted, right, over the last decade of cutting all types of shit and trial and error, it's, again, has to pass the Mayday Mindset failure variables: biology, environment, technology, gloves, loss of dexterity, glove size, accessibility, reach, finding it without the use of your eyes or dexterity while wearing over mitts below 3 feet, right? We've found that a straight cutting multi-purpose snip, a straight cutting, so not something that is like a cable cut, like a lineman plier or like a small plier where you got like, a 1/4 inch of cutting at the end and then bites in the front, not a strip, nothing that has a stripping notch on it for electricians, a straight scissor type overlapping high tensile metal multi-purpose cutter that cuts metal, cuts carpet, cuts clothes, cuts wire, cuts everything in between. And they're out there, a multi-purpose high tensile cutter with a straight blade that does not grab an object and draw to the throat to cut, similar to your hydraulic cutters. If you think about the guys listening, since you can't see what I'm doing with my hands, if you think about your hydraulic cutters for extrication, how they wrap around a post on the vehicle, they draw the material into the throat of the cutter, and those two blades, circular semi-lunar blades, overlap.
Right.
That's what wire cutters do. That doesn't work because once it overlaps once, you can't open them again due to biological changes, loss of dexterity, oven mitts, zero visibility, accelerated heart rates due to hormone, and the fact that you cannot figure out that the material you're cutting is caught in the tool. Which is why it leads me to another point, why we always encourage, like the ones that I carry, the ones that all my cadre carries, an opening assisted tool, something that's going to help your dexterity and fatigue, open the tool and spit out the object that's caught in it. So you don't have to do it manually. And we always recommend the full cutting edge from tip to stem. It needs to cut, right? Because at no point, something that has a half a cutting blade, half serrated, half biting, or whatever those tools are that you're carrying in your pocket, at no point am I going to be able to rationalize that I grab a piece of entanglement, I cut it, and I bite somewhere that's a non-cutting edge on that tool. My brain's not going to default to, oh shit, Rob, you're 1/15/16 of an inch off. You need to retract a little bit. No, you should just keep doing what you're doing.
Keep doing it.
And run out of air. Okay? So let's decrease the failure variables. Let's increase our probability for success and apply tools and equipment that we know work for everything, not just wires. And lastly, you need to have them accessible. You mentioned the action area. For the guys and girls listening, the action area is what we call the space between your heads up display or your regulator down to your SCBA belt buckle and shoulder to shoulder. Not Rob, but data and historical evidence has taught us that the majority of firefighters that are found and survive a Mayday report back to the fact that they were found either face down or in the fetal position with access to only what's in their chest area. Nothing in their leg pockets, nothing in their freaking lower coat pockets. If you're lucky, you can get to your lower coat pockets. But the majority of the evidence that we have, whether it's from the East Coast, West Coast, or the middle of the country, all shows members being found secondary to a Mayday or a near miss in a face down or fetal position. Very rarely are they in their back because they'd be like a turtle or a cockroach on their back because they're wearing an air pack. But the majority of the time they're found face down. And if they're able to talk about their incident afterwards, that group has said almost unanimously that they only had access to what they have on their chest. And some of them have even said that they only have access or use of one arm, not the other, because of entrapment or because of injury, either from fall through, fire behavior, overwhelmed by thermal insult, or collapse. I was at a fire, story time quick, with Captain Rob Rule, who's retired from my former fire department. We had a second story collapse on him at a multifamily residential. We Mayday. He never even called, though we can see it from the parking lot. All the crews around him, just like the data says, rushed to the scene, grabbed the freaking structural debris off of him. He wasn't able to get himself out. Shit still burning, got him out, and we lost half the freaking building. It was running the clock loft. He's retired now. I have a vivid memory of going to the back of the ambulance to see him before they went to the hospital. I opened the back doors. He was somebody that I admired greatly. He was a training captain at the time. He was working safety at that incident. And I said, hey, Cap, are you all right? He had his bunker pants down to around his knees, and he had a white T-shirt on. And he told me, he called me Ram for my last name, Ramierz. He was the only one that called me that. And he had a thick accent. And he said he smoked a lot of Marlboro Lights and drank black coffee. Old school guy.
That is old school.
Right? And he said, Ram, I don't know what the big deal was. If I could have reached my Marlboros, y'all would have found me smoking a cigarette. I don't know what took you so long. That's what he said. And
Wow.
I laughed. He's crazy. He drove away. You know where he kept his freaking cigarettes? On his right leg pocket.
Oh.
Which is why he couldn't reach them.
Wow.
Okay?
That's
not a case study. That's just something I related back to the action area.
Dude, I love it. That's great information. I love that story too. That's you don't get many people like that anymore anyways in the fire service. We don't have those guys anymore. But that's what I learned from that whole speech everybody just heard. That's what I got at his training. That's what you guys will get at his trainings. It's real. It's pretty raw, like how he delivers it. Rob is not pulling any punches, and it will resonate with a lot of people. And he does his homework. He knows what he's talking about. This isn't just something he found on Google and then wants to teach it. He's looking into the data. And Rob, you talk about the data. You talk about where you find this information. For people who don't know, where do you find this information?
I wish there was a one-stop shop, right?
There's a lot of different venues.
There isn't. There really isn't. So it's years of accumulated data. I use NIOSH. I use Data Not Drama. I use FSRI. I use the University. The University of Maryland has a great program. They have archives in their library. The National Fire Academy has an archive library as well. You can search for stuff there. you talk about, firefighter close calls back in the day, Jim Abbott with the Project Mayday, the numbers that, everybody still uses, but, I go everywhere, man, everywhere. And the unfair advantage that I have right now, which is a blessing, is that after doing this for so long, I get like emails constantly and phone calls and made friends and people that want to share their near misses with me, stuff that doesn't get put into, data studies. And they're like, hey, Rob, we just had a Mayday. Listen to this audio. Hey, Rob, we had this last week. This is what happened. And I get this information. I write it down and I compare it to the history and the data, and it all matches. Doesn't matter where it's from. Whether it's a guy calling me from Jersey or a guy calling me from freaking Arizona, it's the same exact thing we're all experiencing. We're not inventing new ways to like lose firefighters, guys. We're losing them the same way over and over and over. And that is my frustration. That is my biggest frustration. That's what fuels my fire. At some point, somebody's got to stop the bleed.
Yeah.
Because we're doing it the same way over and over and over and over. James Michael Mueller, we just celebrated his anniversary, right?
Yes, sir.
We just keep losing guys in the same way.
You nail it, Rob. I've been hitting on this a lot with the places, and I get to be fortunate enough to teach. For me, it was always this traditional method. I'll say it like with the pack conversion. It was always a traditional method of you have to use the waist straps to convert your pack, and no one ever explained to me why. It just had to be done that way. And then again, I went down to Dadgum and I saw the pickoff strap. I'm like, holy shit. It can be a different way, and it's easier and it's quicker. And again, for people who are a lot bigger in their gear than I'm used to, this is going to work a lot better than using a waist strap and me having to get their leg over there and I got to feed it through all that crap. But we keep doing some of the things the same way all the time, and it's ingrained in us. It has to be this way. And I think that's what you said. Like people they freeze because if that's not going to work, they don't know what else to do. And we're always just taught the traditional method and it has to be this way. But then when you get asked the question why, some people don't have an answer for it. And now I think we're actually getting better with people like you and people like Basil that are coming out and saying, I'm showing you these new methods. I'm showing you new ways to do it because data has shown that the old school ways are not always the way to do it. There's new ways to do it. I mean, just like suppression. We found a whole new way to put out fire with water mapping and proper water application. Like there's a better way to do it. Remember, like, right? The transitional attack was a bad thing to say. Yep. And, people think that's a sign of being a pussy, but it's why do you want to work harder when you work smarter? Same thing with a head nozzle. Same thing with proper water application, water mapping, using a pickoff strap, using the hasty strap, which I firmly love. I believe in what Hank's product on that. Yeah. Like these are things that are being available to us now. And we don't have to do all these things we were taught back in 1990s. Like they were great, but the research wasn't out there yet. It was just, you had to do it this way and you can't ask why. Now we're in a generation where, yes, please ask that question why. Yep. And have that freedom. And if you work for anybody, if they work for a department, you ask a question why, and you get in trouble for that, go to a new department because you're in a bad place. And that's where I was, is like, why do I have to do this way? And it usually was because I said so. And I never got to ask that question why. And then meeting you and meeting all those other guys out there who are helping us to be free thinking firefighters, not robots. And you've said that before too. I want you to be thinking firemen. I don't want you to be robots. Nope. And we need more people like that. So question those through those old traditional methods. Why do we have to do that? Why do we have to use our SCBAs as a harness? Because if, again, people don't know this, the manufacturers don't recommend it. If you look in the manual, there is no written information that says when you convert your pack into harness. It's not out there because they don't recommend it. It's supposed to be on your back, not between your crotch. So there's reasons for that. And back in the day, we couldn't ask those questions. Somebody came up with it, and that's the way you're going to do it. So I love what you're preaching, Rob, and it's always a pleasure to be able to talk to you about this.
I appreciate it, dude. Just to stick to the air pack for a second, let's not blow by that. Like, I have to be honest. It makes no fucking sense to default to converting an air pack. If that's what your organization does and only does, right? You're a one-trick pony, and you're not taking any of the data and the evidence that we've had collected for decades that tells us that firemen are going to wear their air pack wrong. Firemen in distress, especially if you teach them from day one to take their air pack off to get through a drill, are going to default to removing their air pack. Firemen feel like giant bean bags in zero visibility below 3 feet when you're excited because you're going to get not Mrs. Smith, but firefighter Smith. Your dexterity, their gear, their buckle is going to feel like a needle in a haystack is what you're looking for. All of that shit works in your apparatus bay. All of that works in your sterile fire academy tower. All of that works in that environment, but I haven't fought a real fire ever at my firehouse or the training academy tower, ever. So please understand that any skill, not just firefighter rescue, any skill, you have to know the why, not just the how. An organizational policy that only has one skill does not excuse you from being a complete product. All right. I've never had a successful person in any occupation, especially blue collar jobs, a plumber, an electrician, a dude hanging out my TV that shows up in my house and says, I work for company X, Y, and Z, and this is the only way, and this is the only type of TV or wall that I can use this, or plumbing that I work on, or outlet that I can replace. No, because they're fucking professionals in their craft. So if you only know how to stretch a line beyond the pre-connect one way, stretch a line one way, flow a line one way, advance a line one way, throw a ladder one way, package a firefighter one way, you're an incomplete product. You are not a skilled craftsman. You need to have 4 different ways to do every skill. At least 3. That 4th one is MacGyver time. But if I trust your instinct, if you have 3 solid skills, your MacGyver is going to be pretty successful as opposed to a dude that has 1 skill and goes straight to MacGyver. Right? I trust that guy that's got 3 skills. 3 different ways to force an inward swinging door. 3 different ways to force an outward swinging door. Right? 3 different ways to package a down fireman. Why are we continuously teaching one way to do things or married to these policies and procedures or guidelines? They're a guideline. They are not black or white. Those are gutter guards at the bowling alley. You can be anywhere in here with the ball. And those are your gutter guards. Those are your bookends. All right? It doesn't say you have to throw the ball down the middle each and every time. Jesus Christ, be professional, dude.
I think it's honestly for me, I think it's the change that's scary, especially for the old heads. You know, that's the way they were taught. And then somebody coming in and saying, hey, check this out. And it's just that mind blown aspect of, wait a minute, that's not how I've done it. Like you can't change my life on me like that. My mind doesn't work that way. So when you present these things, because when I train and I'll teach people how to use a pickoff strap, and if I put it into the buckle, the first thing that people usually say, well, what's that buckle rated for? That's usually the first response I get.
The same thing your buckle's rated for. Nothing.
Nothing. And I always chime back with, okay, well, tell me what my harness is rated for. When I put that around your crotch, tell me the rating. Find it right now. And they can't. It's because it's not written anywhere. So you can't use that as a scapegoat saying, well, my buckle is not rated for that, because that whole pack is not rated to hold 300 plus pounds out of a window. Nope. It's not meant for that.
Nope.
So we have to get outside that whole traditional thinking. Again, the person who made up that idea of the converted pack, that's genius stuff. It worked for that time.
Well-intentioned, right? Fucking rock star of their time, ahead 100%. Of their time, and I respect them. I would have a picture of them on the wall behind me if I knew who it was.
Dude, they're right up there with Hugh Halligan.
100%.
Right? He invented a great tool. They invented a great method to try to get firefighters out of a bad situation. 100%. But as we all say, the fire service is fluid. It's ever changing. We need to change our tactics. We need to change the way we're doing things. And again, this is a different method that is working. And I think, again, for the people who've done it the same way for 20 years, it's not that they don't want to do it. I think it's just a shock method of like, holy shit, I don't know about this. I don't think I can wrap my brain around a new technique like that. I've been doing this way for so long. And like you said, you need to have 2 or 3 different ways to be able to do those things.
So the main issue with that, right? The main issue that I've learned happens to me to this day. I just had a conversation with another division chief over the last 2 days straight, and I had the same issue. He had never used Tool X over the last 30 years, right? I've never done this. We've never needed this here. We've never been in a situation where this has been a thing or happened to me. All right. We each have different experiences in the fire service. And I've said it a bunch of times. We said it today, firefighting is a local sport. So the stuff that goes down in your neck of the woods in the New England area is different in the Carolinas, is different in freaking California, and it's different in South Florida, right? But fire burns at the same temperature in all freaking 4 places, right? And our bodies are still the same body in all 4 places. So those are the things that make us the same, and especially our brains. Now, that said, if we understand what the limitations are, then you start creating contingencies for those limitations. The problem is that the majority of the people that have been doing the same thing over and over and over again without a bad consequence for so long, they start normalizing that as the right way, right? And because it hasn't happened to them, they think it's unnecessary. So we as instructors need to, number one, this is a great tip for those old heads. Number one, you need to fucking walk the walk every day, not just when you have new information. So every day you need to be a follower of these old heads. Give them their position. They've earned it. You can't demand leadership if you've never earned followership.
Yeah.
Right? So you as an instructor, me as an instructor, I need to give those guys their position daily. And they need to see that I do that. They need to see that I respect their position and their experience, regardless of rank. And I respect the history of the organization I work for.
Yeah.
First and foremost, before I teach them something new. The first time they hear from Rob can't be after I came back from a conference.
Oh,
I can't
absolutely.
go from the recliner to the apparatus bay. This is the way we're doing it now. We're doing it wrong. A lot of guys make that mistake. Number 2, value. Value their experience. What they've experienced will help you teach them something new. How do you guys do this? This is the way we do it. How does it work for you? It works great. I like to do it this way. I like to try that way. All right. Awesome. That kicks ass. You can fucking do it. Now let's try it a different way. How about this? How about that? How about the other? And you start hitting them with the data. All right. I can't just tell somebody, hey, in our new high-rise kit or standpipe kit, we're going to go from 1 3/4 inch to 2.5 inch hose with 2.5 inch coupling, or 2 inch hose with 1.5 inch coupling, or 2 inch hose with 2.5 inch couplings, because I went to a conference. I had to tell them, hey guys, this is the required flow rate. This is the minimum flow rate required. This is NFPA 14. This is the friggin' One Meridian Plaza fire. This is what we learned from it. This is the type of building that we're in. This is the combustibles in that building. This is the time that we have. This is why we need this new equipment. So let's use what you know and implement it to this new skill and build something that works for our organization, our staffing, and our deployment model. You can't force feed these guys, because then it becomes 2 rams butting heads. It's easier for me to teach a dude what a fucking zebra looks like if you've never seen one, if they've been around a horse.
Yeah.
I'll do picture a horse, dude, and then fucking paint it black and white with stripes and give it a mohawk. That's a zebra. But if I'm trying to explain a zebra to a dude that's never seen a horse or a zebra, they're going to be like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? It's not relatable. So use their experience, use the why, use the data, use the information, educate yourself so you don't come across understudied, and then slowly convince them to do what you want them to do because they want to do it. Understand?
Yeah.
It's a slow process.
It is a very slow process, and like you said, it has to be organic, and you have to have that value and that trust. And actually, Dave, I listened to a podcast that Dave Quick talked about with keeping it organic, like talking about like changing out hoses. And if you start shitting on the product that's already on your truck, hose, nozzles, extrication equipment, if you're shitting on that, the person who bought that and implemented that is usually probably now a chief, an assistant chief or the chief or whatever higher ranking than you, and you start shitting over it, they are not going to like that. And so they're immediately going to shut down, or they're just going to tell you, no, I'm the one who came up with it. I bought it. So if you don't like it, you're telling me I'm stupid, or you're telling me you don't trust me. And Dave Quick, again, really hit home on that. You gotta be mindful of who you're talking to and be respectful of what they purchased and why they purchased it. And it's okay to ask the question why, but if you come out and go, I don't like this is shit, or I want the head nozzle because the head nozzle is fantastic, look at all the videos, but it's great, but you got to give them the knowledge, but you got to be respectful about it as well and give them that opportunity to learn. Because like you just said, like we're instructors, they're instructors, give them the opportunity and give them the respect that, you know, they have the knowledge and have a great discussion of both applications. And then you can come to a happy medium. And then maybe they'll say, you know what? All right, well, show me this. Right. And maybe we can, like, as we do further testing on it, let's see if this works for our department. Instead of just saying, no, I want this on the truck because this is way cooler. Without data, without research.
Right. They're watching you. It starts with every day before you have the new information to give.
Yeah.
Period. You got to put in the work every day. You can't just
absolutely
attack them with new information from the recliner.
And it's tough to, like, when you come back after a conference, you want to just like go, you want to 100%. Go out and just give it all that you got because you don't want to lose it. You don't want to lose the passion that you just got, the rejuvenation, all the education is just oozing out of you. And you just want to just, everybody look at me right now, come in this room and I'm going to show you all these cool things. Let's do it right now.
Just don't.
You're not going to get that buy-in.
Just don't shit on the old shit.
Yeah. Right? Yep. I love it, dude.
And bring them in.
Bring him in, talking like, yeah, it's a slowly implementation of all of it. And I've learned that the hard way. And
so have I.
I'm still learning.
You're seeing a very finished product right now. This is 24 years of fucking up.
Dude, we're the same age. We're both 46. Yeah. So it takes a while. It's like a fine wine, right? It's just finally it's got the age and to the point where you can actually start drinking it and sipping off of it. So I love it, dude. Rob, I really love everything that we talked about. I could talk for another hour.
Dude, me too. We probably go afterwards. It's cool.
Yeah, right. And you talked about like some of the hard things and the hard days, and I love to end my podcast with talking about a lot of that stuff too. Just making sure that people understand that there's other avenues, there's other ways to get around these bad times. We touched briefly before we started the program. When you've dealt with tough times, like you recently experienced the loss of a close friend and mentor, Bill Gustin. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with these tough times? How do you deal with whether it's a loss of somebody like a mentor like Bill, or just tough calls in general, and to make sure you're not taking it back home to your wife and kids, or making sure that you're not, how do you clear your head, and how do you deal with these tough times?
I wish there was an answer, right? I love to give you that silver bullet that, Goldie, this is the reason that it's happening. And I wish I was as comfortable talking about it as I am with the other stuff, right? With the Mayday stuff and the freaking firefighter survival, biology, physiology. Bill is a mentor and a friend to so many people. You can ask guys across the entire world and they'll all tell you they were Bill's friend. Bill was a South Florida legend. He was our guy. The FDNY's got their guys. The West Coast has their guys. Bill was our guy, before half of us were born or on the job. Bill was the consummate professional, humility, curiosity, respectful, and made everyone feel like they were special. He was bigger than life. So when we lost Bill, it really, it struck a chord with so many guys that emulated him and wanted to earn his respect and earn his curiosity and earn his time. And it showed us that we're all vulnerable. We need to focus on just making it better for each and every one of us daily at the firehouse. I sound so cheesy, but we have to love each other and be nice to each other.
Yeah.
Right? I have 5 firehouse rules, and they don't get very complicated. They're very simple. I stole some of that from like Cody Trestrail. I heard him say some parts of it once, and I thought it was genius, and it really helps your mental health, right? One of the rules is be nice and love each other. Be nice and love each other, support each other, right?
Yeah. Amen.
That alone makes it safe for everybody to display their vulnerabilities and expose their weaknesses. An environment that allows you to fail, an environment that allows you to be weak, an environment that allows you to come off the pedestal and be a human. Not the baddest dude on the freaking company, not the company officer, not the chief officer. They need love too, dude.
Yeah.
Be intentional with your approach. Be genuine with your approach. Make it safe. Young guys don't want to talk about it, dude. I dig it. You want to freaking pop a Zen and crush a freaking white monster. I get it, dude. I get it. Do you want to put the cool cat sticker on your helmet? I get it. I get it, dude. I was there, right? But we're here for you.
Yeah.
Right? We're here for you. And this job's going to kick your ass one way or the other. And it's okay if you don't feel shit now. You're not broken. You're normal, you know? But eventually at some point, you're going to need one of us, and it's going to be okay because we're going to be here for you. We're going to give you a safe place to land. The administrations, I'm an administrator now, right? There's 8 of us that run different divisions. You know, I'm responsible for hundreds of dudes and their families. And it's okay for them to fail. And if they fail, I'll give them a safe place to land, regardless of their reputation, regardless of their company, regardless of their upbringing, regardless of whether they're friends of mine or not. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to fail. Not only the fireman, but as a human being. As a father, as a husband, as a new employee, as a new company officer, it's okay to fail. It is safe to show your vulnerabilities. Right? And we're going to work through this until we get better. We're all going to maintain a growth mindset. We're never going to treat you like an inexhaustible resource. At no point should any administrator treat their people like an inexhaustible resource. These are human beings that go home to families after they gave their heart and soul to these communities for 24 or 48 hours. Do not treat them like inexhaustible resources, because eventually that resource is going to run dry and you still expect them to be there. And you pile family, financial, emotional, trauma, stress, children, illnesses, and all the things that life throws in every single one of us, whether you're a fireman or you're a mechanic or you're a freaking Bill Gates. We all have different problems, and the coping mechanisms will not be there. So make it safe to fail, love each other, be nice to each other, respect each other's backgrounds and upbringings and weaknesses. And Jesus Christ, if you're an administrator, make it safe and make it so that they don't feel like an inexhaustible resource and you genuinely care about them. Period. Keep it simple, stupid, just like RIT. Don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple, because all we have available are simple skills. And don't ever leave these guys on their own. I'll tell you this. I've been to a lot of firefighter funerals not related to fireground activities. I had a fireman call me one time when he was about to whack himself. And we had to medically and through law enforcement take care of him. I sat in his house with him. I was there when they handcuffed him. I was there afterwards. I was there during his hospitalization. I lost track of him because it's exhausting. So if you are going to say that you are that person, don't just get them to help. You have to commit for the long haul. And it's hard because life moves at 1,000 miles per hour. There's always the next call, the next conference, the next retirement, the next party, the next family trip, the next graduation, the next softball game. Right? And the dude needs you right in the middle of a freaking softball game. And you've been dealing with this guy for 6 months. If you're going to say you're going to help somebody, understand the burden of that. Because it's not at the moment. It's until they get back to themselves again. And that's a heavy, heavy, heavy commitment. And I've been part of it, and I've failed, and I've been done well. But I understand what failing feels like. And it's tough to be there for 3 months and 4 months and 6 months and phone calls at 1 a.m. and phone calls during family time. So guys, if you're listening, make it safe, treat them right, be nice to each other, allow them to be vulnerable. Don't treat them like an inexhaustible resource. Make sure they're taking care of themselves and their families. And if you're going to commit to helping them and get them help, you're in it for the long haul. Don't tap out halfway through because they're relapsed or because they're having a bad day. It's peaks and valleys for a very long time.
I love it, man. That's great. A great message, powerful message, Rob. Um, it's you're absolutely right, and I say it all the time. Like we need to be there to talk to each other, and back in the day, it was a bad thing to talk about our feelings, and people have gotten better with it, and I'm glad that people are making it public. And but if people need to talk, we got to be open for it. Like you said, pick up that phone. That man, I've heard so many stories of people saying, well, he texted me, but I was busy and I never got back to him. And that was the last time I ever heard from that person. We need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence, like you said, is responsibility, obligation to be able to pick up that phone and make sure that person on the other end is talking to us and getting the help that they need. It's a big deal. And I appreciate you, Rob, with what you had to say there. That really resonates with me, and I hope with a lot of other people. And I love always talking about Next Rung, Blake Stennett. They're doing great things. They're getting help to people that need it, especially people who can't afford it or can't get appointments. They'll work with you on getting the help you need. If for whatever reason you don't have a resource to reach out to, if you don't have a brothers and sisters, and which is a lonely world if you don't have that within your own firehouse. Because honestly, that's why we joined the firehouse. That's why we joined the fire system, is because we want our brothers and sisters. We want these friends that we have for life. And like Rob said, we live in a great world now where we can meet each other from all these different various conferences and trainings, and you make friends for life. If I need help, I can reach out to Rob and text him and call him, and vice versa. And people listening or watching, if you need help, if you're looking for resources, you can always get in contact with me. I can get you in touch with the resources that you need. And again, Next Rung is one of those valuable resources. But please don't make a permanent solution with a temporary problem. So make sure you are doing your due diligence to get the help that you need, because you have to do it first. You got to reach out to those people that when you need help, you need to reach out to somebody. If we don't know what's bothering you, we can't help you. So thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate that. That's great information. I know it's kind of like a dark note, but I love to talk about it because it's really important, something special to me. And like you said, too, honestly, I love what you just said, too, is that our admin, our higher ups, we need to treat people not like they're just hired from the waist down. Where we are people with lives, with families, and we are employees and even chiefs as well. You go home to your families and you carry a heavy burden of being in charge of so many people. If you're struggling as a chief, same thing. It's not beneath you to reach out and to ask somebody for help. It's a heavy burden being that chief. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? And you need to make sure that you're getting the help that you need. You can't take it all home with you. So we appreciate you, and we want you around for a long time. With that being said, Rob, thank you, brother. I appreciate you being on the C.A.N report, being on this podcast. I think we need to talk again. We were just scratching the surface of all the shit that we were talking about. Oh, yeah. So I got to have you on again. I got to talk with you, man, because I love this shit. And hopefully I get to see you in person again, because it's been far too long.
Yes, sir.
So before we wind down, where are you going to be next? Where can people find you?
So I've taken a 90-day hiatus due to the new job position. And I'm jonesing. I just had the conversation with one of my guys, Pablo Jenner from Jacksonville, and the cadre member, and he was asking me if I was going to be up in Detroit this month, which I normally would be the second week of June, but 90 days. So I haven't been on an airplane since March, and I'm jonesing. My next stop is down here for the Fools International. It's a traveling conference, and this year it's in our backyard in the county I work in Palm Beach County. So I'll be presenting there. Bill Gustin was supposed to be on that card with us. The original announcement had him on it. So I'm going to teach my ass off for him, and I'm going to sit front row and take notes for every instructor, just like he would immediately afterwards. And, then we're all over. We're in firemanship in Illinois after that in July. August, we're in Pittsburgh, and the list goes on and on and on. We end the year back in Germany for the international conference in end of November, right before Thanksgiving.
Bro, amazing. That's awesome. I love it. Spreading the word far and wide. I love you, man. Great stuff. Thank you so much, Rob. So anybody listening, Rob Ramierz, Mayday Mindset. If you can't truck, you can't writ. He also has swag on his site, so make sure you look him up on Instagram, Facebook, all the social media outlets. He's got some actually pretty badass stuff, so make sure you check that out as well. He is in the Book of Search. Like I said, I talked about that. We touched on that, the Book of Search by Firehouse. I have a brief little little appearance in there. So please pick up that book. Man, I can't express enough. It is a huge wealth of knowledge. You have Brian Brush, you have Sean Duffy, you've got everybody in that book that we talk about, and that are on social media. They're presenting their knowledge on all these conferences, but they're also condensed into this book, and it's valuable information. It's like the new curriculum for the fire service, to be honest with you. Like, we teach you the textbook stuff. This is the stuff that you don't get to see in the textbook. So make sure you guys are picking that up. Robert Ramierz, Mayday Mindset. I love you, man. I love what you're doing for the fire service. And like I said, if I didn't go to Daggum Fire Conference 2 years ago, this would have never happened. So anybody that's ever looking for valuable training, make sure you are looking up, follow Rob Ramierz, because a lot of those trainings, it's on his websites, it's on his Facebook and social media posts and Instagram. If you're ever looking for any kind of places to go, if you want to know where Rob's going to be, follow him on the social medias, because he's not going to steer you wrong. And usually he's teamed up with some really good instructors. So make sure you guys are checking that out, because you got to get outside your own area code to get some really good, valuable training. It can't be all inbred. It can't be in your own state. Get out there, network, get the skills. It's not gonna be for nothing. Trusting me, believe in me that you're gonna be better for it. Robert Ramierz, Mayday Mindset, my man. Thank you so much for being on the C.A.N Report. I love you. I love you all. Thanks for listening. You all be safe. Mazel tov.